myself very well. I contradict myself, I am large. I am a multitude, I am a multitude. I contradict myself, I am a joke. I contradict myself very well. I contradict myself, I am large. I am a multitude, I am a multitude. I contradict myself. I contradict myself. I am a multitude, I am a multitude. I contradict myself. I contradict myself very well. I contradict myself.
All right, this is the IPS Evening Deprogram. That is the 33rd degree. Lucifer Tim, 5/23/2024. I believe it's a full moon this evening. Moon in Sagittarius. And I have correlated full moons with lunacy. There's a reason for that word. And I'm expecting more of it. And we're going to continue the daily breakdown of the bread and circuses. Let's start with this. Breaking on Laura Loomer's Twitter account. This person just threatened to assassinate President Trump. Goes by the name Catherine Grace Jordan and is followed by Democrat U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar, who supports Joe Biden. This person needs to be reported to the Secret Service ASAP. Trump was speaking in the Bronx today, and we talked about this yesterday a little bit. And there's a hashtag, No Trump, get out of the Bronx. And it has Trump laying on his side with an ice cream cone on his neck. And then below him, Joe Biden's eating some ice cream. But it just looks kind of like a wound. I think you might all agree. But he's speaking there now. Nothing has happened. In fact, I had someone who was commenting on it, suggesting that this would be a great place to run a PSYOP. And what he suggested was this. This is from Mr. Trustworthy. He said, I know that crowd had to be vetted in advance. No way was a random Bronx crowd going to be allowed in there. And now I know why they chose Crotona Park, because it's far away from busy streets. So Trump snuck into a hidden haven, made his speech to his puppet audience, and then escaped like a winner, very crafty. I know that park. Anytime I've walked through it, it was never crowded. It was the ideal, fairly desolate place to sneak in and out with no crowds forming to jeer. The recon did their homework. New York Post calls the tame crowd boisterous. And the rapper with the MAGA neck tat's got to be a skin suit. There's just no way. Oh, MAGA rappers have been getting increasingly more cartoonish. Hard to believe. In fact, I believe I have a pretty... When I say good, I mean good bad. I mean cringe-entertainment. And yeah, there's very little on the internet as cringe-entertaining as a good MAGA rapper. In fact, the MAGA rap we played the other day had this strange individual in the back, looked exactly like Hitler. And look, they're rolling out some of these characters, and you want to say, oh, this is controlled op. These people are just acting like this just to make MAGA look crazy. These are all Democrats. No, these are true MAGA people, and I actually have a image on the screen of one who has a tattoo on her thigh, and it says, this P grabs back. It's got a cat, and it's got Donald Trump's name right above it, dangerously close to her groin area. Like, this is real. It's a cult, it's a religion, but politics has always been, I think, a replacement religion. That's kind of what this is. That's probably one of the big secrets, that they're literally worshiping their leaders. It's some kind of idolatry. We are joined by Diana South at DLive, 3 Up, 3 Down at Twitch, Matt XP, Trippa, Ted Stryker, Elephant Tusks, FMGR, Jennifer Reeves, Mingo Penguin, Penguin Doctor, 144,000 days, Clockwork 113, Jennifer Reeves, Linda Curtis, Holly Weird, Armin Ree. Alright, we have a great crowd here already. Holly Weird says they love ice cream, they love pizza. Yeah, Pizzagate ruined pizza for like 2 years for me. So I was kind of glad to find out it was just a hoax, because I can eat it again without being implicated in horrendous crimes. Alright, so let's continue just going through the daily bread and circuses. A lot of the same. This is great right here. Celebrities taking over and controlling the awakening. Let's get into this Terrence Howard thing a little bit. He's been getting a lot of flack, Terrence Howard, because when he spoke on Joe Rogan's show, it sounded like he was really breaking things down. But when you pause and reflect, you can kind of see that, it's kind of new agey, more spiritual new agey than scientific. But Jennifer Oki, 42, suggested celebrities are taking over the awakening, the revelation process, repackaging works and putting their faces on it. Terrence Howard once said in an interview that Oprah told him years ago that he's, quote, a young prince, and one day you shall become king. Your crown is there, put it on. He called her my baby and calls himself Oprah's people. Going on, and this is again from Jen Oakley, just finding this whole conversation with Joe Rogan to be sus. And I think so too. We've been remarking on how lately Joe Rogan has been platforming certain ideas, like Bart Zabrell, fake moon landing, looking at the atom bomb tests and suggesting it looks fake. So they seem to be getting ahead of this stuff. And same with Elon Musk, who's calling legacy media fake or saying it's strange that people live in that alternate reality. Who talks about the various closed systems within media as alternate realities? But anyway, the tweet goes on here. I'm suspicious by nature. It's great that people are paying attention to the stunning majesty and mysteries of sacred geometry, math, and science. On the other hand, I wonder which direction they plan on steering the general public, to or away from something. Keep doing your research. Cujo says, did you catch the new Joe Rogan podcast where an actor leveraged by the circus repackages research that plebes have been talking about for years, and the basic BS comes out of the woodwork and they get their minds blown because celebrities? Yeah, there is a tendency for people to look at celebrities as saints, intercessors, saviors. This was one of the trends among the flat earth movement that I found to be kind of perplexing at first. I was like, wait, they're part of the infrastructure that holds down this false model, and yet you're pitching your ideas hoping one of them takes it and runs with it. I always thought that was kind of going the wrong direction. Holly Weird says, was just watching the bit by Terrence Howard about 369. Yeah, if you say Tesla, people's eyes just glaze over. You're like, Tesla, free energy. The QAnon shaman was doing the same bit. Armin Reese says, mainstream now suggests that the lights in Portugal the other night was a piece of a comet. Now, when was the last time a comet broke up? Like a piece of a comet. Now, that's kind of the story in Don't Look Up, but it was the C-19. At the end of 2019, around the time C-19 started spreading, the comet C-19, Atlas, broke apart. It was a green comet, and we talked about it at the time, the significance being Atlas Shrugged, which is about a shutdown. If you haven't read Atlas Shrugged, and I used to recommend it, but now I'm like, there's no more time. We already passed through the reset, so you missed it. But basically, the book is about shutting everything down by this elite group who go to a place called Atlantis. But Atlas Shrugged is just basically saying they let it all go down so that humanity can sort itself out before they turn the lights back on. Well, we had a C-19 comet, again, right before 2020. Mr. Trustworthy said, Caesars insisted on being worshipped as gods, right? Yeah, I was going to make that exact point. That, and for some time I thought even, Trump's hair might be symbolic. He's obsessed with Apollo. And you got the laurel wreath of Apollo, a crown, essentially, the sun god's crown. And I think it's all sun worship. And when you get into the rituals of everything that they do, the subtext, the symbolism, there's got to be a purpose to it. Why the Christification of Donald Trump? Why the anti-Christification of Donald Trump? It's apotheosis. They're being deified, and they are being worshipped in the true sense of the word. Because what you're looking at whenever you look at modern witchcraft or even Freemasonry, and this is actually what they believe, they advanced from stone altars and totems and statues, just basic idolatry, and they moved it onto living altars. So within the context of a ceremony, of a ritual, the I guess celebrant, the priest, they call the worshipful master. He wears the sun around his neck because he's the sun. for the context of the ritual. You have someone there as the sun, someone as the moon, worshipful master, and the junior warden. And my point of it is, they are just like in witchcraft. You have the priest who becomes the horned god, and the priestess draws down the moon, becomes the goddess. That's how celebrities are truly vehicles, avatars for possession by these various entities. I mean, the elite are not, quote, Satanists. It's way too pantheistic, animistic, and it entails cosmism, which is a mix of theosophy and science fiction. I've been making the point recently just to state that the dominant religion in the world today is Nasatology, which is basically scientism plus our journey into space. And it started off as a New Age concept. Outer space began from the very inception as a replacement heaven. Okay, let's move on here. Jay Digg says Rolling Stone profiled Terrence Howard in 2015 and covered a lot of the theories he talked about on Rogan. Well, anyway, the guy's whole take seemed interesting. I mean, it was compelling as a listen, just as a podcast, but he thinks the Earth is going around the sun. And, his theory about how planets, quote, defecate moons, like, yeah, that's typical, the type of stuff NASA comes up with all the time. It's not any weirder than that. But I'm just not sure how he glossed over the idea that maybe our entire outer space construct is fake. So you come up with these radical explanations for space, and yet you're accepting on faith that the television doesn't lie. And phones are open, by the way. Linda Curtis says outer space has always been inner space. Yeah, I would say this. Outer space is one, it's this replacement heaven, but two, the whole space program is about taking control of your inner space. The space program is about controlling your mind space. And I think it's all theater, it's all pageantry, and it has successfully dragged us into a movie. We have been dragged into an alternate reality game with billions of minds. Now, a certain number have figured out that it's fake, but the extent of the fakery is so easy to underestimate. People are incredulous. They'd rather hold on to these extraordinary claims than question that these things could be lied about on such a scale. It's part naivety. Oswaldo says Jake the A-hole is using terms like world stage news. You're welcome, Jake. Yeah, world stage is what I mean. That term isn't new, but I specifically use it to describe the mental, as in the construct of the world that we agree is real. So we all live in our own little parts of the world, and we only have, our own little pieces of it. But the big picture that we agree upon, the one that's framed with fake nukes, planet-killing asteroids, history with dinosaurs and space rocks killing dinosaurs, evolution, the whole big story, the agreed-upon mass delusion or agreed-upon model. And what we're pointing out here is that the world stage, which is whatever the mass media immersive illusion focuses on, because it's almost more a construction of what they omit than what they focus on. But anyway, the world stage is a model, and the more you test it, the more you find it doesn't match up. And we're not just talking about shape or curve. We're talking about the historical narrative, the news media, as it's being produced, is seemingly written in advance. And the people who have been questioning the news for years have been led around by controlled opposition agents that give them false explanations so they can't find out how fake it is. So they're validated. They're saying, yeah, it is fake. You're right. You're so wise. But they don't tell them how fake. And they prevent them from arriving at the correct answer. And it's all by design. Smarty Pants says, Timmy, are you beefing with Jake? No. We actually haven't had any talks lately. We do have a disagreement about chemtrails, but a lot of people disagree with me about chemtrails. But I don't believe in chemtrails. I'm a non-believer. I don't believe in unicorns. I don't believe in Bigfoot. I don't believe in moon landings. I don't believe in a lot of things. I'm a disbeliever. And I am fomenting a culture of disbelief because we have a world of competing belief systems in a fluid reality. The world stage has become reality fluid. But my thinking here is that at some point we're likely going to debate the subject. He and I will debate it in Vegas this summer, or somebody will have to step up because what I see here is the chemtrail theory is an umbrella. It's a premise that they get you to accept, and it's like they reveal one thing. What else do they know? And once you're there under this big tent conspiracy theory, now there's like, oh look, you got to look into 5G, fluoride in the water, revelation of the method, false flags, and then you just go down the list. All these fake issues or conspiracy theories that don't go all the way are all beneath the big chemtrail tent. And the chemtrail itself, chemtrail theory, is worth debunking because it's a truth or orthodoxy that everybody accepted. But when you reverse engineer it, it's eye opening because there are at least half a dozen informal logical fallacies that go into believing it. And if you can deconstruct that, and if you can accept the blow to the ego that you've been wrong and you've been spreading wrong information, I think you come out of it better and impervious to similar psychological operations. It's one of the most successful loaded questions in the world to say, what are they spraying? All right, let's see here. Oh, by the way, I was outside today, went for a hike. Someone accused me of never touching grass. Like, you don't touch grass, you're just in your basement. How would you know about contrails? And it was a really hot day, and there was just a lot of plains, but there were no consistent, or rather persistent trails. Why weren't there any trails? Well, the chemtrail proponent would say they weren't spraying today. They took May 23rd off. But the weather reports would have made it possible to predict that there wouldn't be any persistent trails because of the temperature, the humidity. So again, the predictability of contrails automatically rules them in as existing. So to insert chemtrails that you cannot predict requires that you first debunk that, and that's not really possible. But I went out there and I touched the grass and I looked at the plains and the lack of trails. I went chemtrail spotting and there wasn't a single one. Okay, continuing here. Elephant Tusk says, you believe to disbelieve. No, no, it's simply this. There's this worldview that's being propagated 24/7 from many different platforms, and you're just expected to download it. Like, this is what you believe for the day. You're just meant to allow them to data dump every kind of content imaginable into your subconscious, and you just absorb it by osmosis. You're left to me be powerless to parse it all. I mean, who has the time to go through a week's worth of news every day? That's how much content is crammed in there. Nobody. So you're left to follow blue checks, choose a side, pick a few trusted voices to filter it out. It's the sea of irrelevance in order to know what to believe. The other option is to choose not to believe, but to suspend judgment until you have more information. Remain agnostic about everything. That shouldn't be a problem because if something is supported by facts and it's self evident, well, there, agnosticism solved. The trouble is when you adopt this posture of agnosticism, you find more and more that less and less of what they show you can be verified in any way. So you increasingly detach from the almost impulsive belief, auto belief in everything that happens, and then you reject the notion that everything you didn't see must have happened if it's not challenged. So fake until proven real really does become the stable philosophical posture. We're in the age of information. If you can't prove it's not fake, that's your problem. I'm not required to believe. The burden of proof's not on me. And I still get people hitting me up about the ISS. Like, well, you haven't gone out there to see it. How can you say you don't believe it? Well, I think it qualifies as an extraordinary claim at this point. We've done enough to to just point out how questionable its basic claims are that it's anything more than a movie filmed in a Hollywood basement, filmed in a swimming pool. And yet, the proponents of the ISS, the ones who believe it's up there, have yet to provide evidence. All they can do is they can point to certain videos on YouTube that I've already said don't count. It doesn't count if you don't have yourself in the video with the ISS passing you in the background. You can't let people get away with, oh, it passed in front of the sun and I used a solar filter. What do you mean? We're trying to spot a space station and you're taking a picture of it when it's in front of the sun when you can't look at it. I want eyeballs, eyewitnesses. None of this filter and editing and real slick editing, usually with crossfades and transitions. How do I know it's not an insert shot? That's not evidence. So I have a higher standard. And if you can't meet that, again, it's your problem. And if you're an ISS believer, you're not a knower until you can prove it with your own eyes. Not a tall burden of proof, according to you, believers, who say that it's there every half hour or whatever. Kevin Mooring says it's playing out. Trump is the gang on the run in New York, and the baseball gang chasing them is from the Bronx, where Trump is at tonight. Elephant Tusk says Red Hot Chili Peppers Californication has a lot of truth in it. You know, we had mentioned Red Hot Chili Peppers the other day. We were talking about the symbolism of blood sugar, sex magic, and how it compares to the cover art of the album Load by Metallica, which all ties in to this Babylon and the Beast, the Templar flag. We may get into that symbolism here later. Big tangent, but if you remind me later, perhaps we'll get to it. I wanted to get through the notes first. And with this chemtrail issue, it's really not that divisive as far as like it's not a personal thing if someone believes and someone doesn't. But what I'm trying to make clear here is that to believe it, you also have to accept the fallacious reasoning. And if you can accept that, then I think you should have to explain why. Like, why can't you convince me without any of these slick sleight of mind tricks if it's self-evident? Lord Laney says, late, hope all you beautiful penguin some bitches are well. Well, only 25 minutes late, we just got started. So we were talking about Joe Rogan. You know, what's up with Joe Rogan suggesting nukes are fake? And Elon Musk, I think one of the things he said today was something about people still believe the legacy media alternate reality. They're constantly more or less appropriating the things we talk about. Cope said 2.5 million followers, Rogan further softening the auto hoax revolution landing pad, getting the ideas out there to be watered down, watering down auto hoaxology. See, there may be a concerted effort here. I even saw Jack Posobiec making some flat earth comments. And what are these big channels doing? But just signaling something. They're drowning it out. They're hijacking the conversations. And I'm not comfortable with Stu Peters tweeting me, oh, this guy's pointing out that the ISS is fake. You know, he shared that and it got like 1 million hits. I'm like, that's nice. The guy who is going to do a course, like a seminar, a clinic on how to make nooses and burn books in a few months is promoting me on Twitter. You know, they just contaminate the field. But anyway, that was pointed out by Copacetic in Gilded that, and I think I agree with this, that they are indeed trying to get ahead of it. Here's Jack Posobiec. Globetards are at it again. First they'll convince you the world isn't flat. Anyway, it just seems like a little too conspicuous. We didn't get into this very much. Hydroterrorism. Warning about drinking water was issued nationwide this week over concerns about potential cyber attacks. Disabling cyber attacks are striking water and wastewater systems throughout the U.S. These have the potential to disrupt critical lifeline of clean and safe drinking water and impose significant costs, said Michael Regan, administrator with the EPA, and the White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. In these attacks, cyber actors targeted and disabled a common type of operational technology used at water facilities, where the facility had neglected to change the default manufacturer password, the letter said. In November, CNN reported that the federal authorities were investigating an Iranian cyber attack on water utility facilities in Pennsylvania. So, again, this was nationwide last week. And then you have this: Putin launches space weapon while his forces carry out nuke drills near Ukraine. So, nuke drills, of course, means they're simulating what will actually be a simulated bomb. But people don't know that the bomb is simulated, so they see the simulation as a provocation. It's like a dress rehearsal. Oh, phones are open. I just didn't see the ringer. If you're on, you can actually wait on hold. By the way, we have this new phone system. If you call in, you can listen on your speakerphone. But yes, I will be keeping an eye on that. Putin launches space weapon. Satellite killer begins exercises for battlefield nukes. Pentagon pursuing Russian use of Musk's Starlink. So I think there's a few openings here for how they're going to make this thing real. If you remember, in the last few months, we've had numerous stories about space junk hitting people's homes, even space debris, space junk, which wasn't even a thing until a few years ago. They made it real. It's a hyperstition. Space debris could be dealt with more cheaply than thought, new NASA report. 7 hours ago, space junk is raining from the sky. With thousands of satellites in orbit and record numbers of rocket launches, expert warns there's a growing risk of space debris crashing. One day ago, Space Force found a satellite lost in space. No, that's not the one. There's something else here. But yeah, here we go. Orbital debris and potential solutions. Space debris constellations orbiting at 17,000 miles per hour. Now, I came up with this concept back in 2019 for orbiting trash compactors, and I pitched it to DARPA, who have a installation at White Sands. I called them, and it was pretty clear that as a civilian, I have no way in if I want to get into space junk reclamation. But what I was trying to explain, I think they thought I was joking, that you could send a compactor that uses electromagnetism to gather up space junk, but instead of pitching it back down to the Earth, it would compact it into cubes and then eject it onto the moon, stamping it with the Amazon logo, whoever is going to be eventually building bases on the moon. I think it's a great idea. Kevin Mooring says, speaking on Putin, doesn't he have fake nukes? This fake war could have been over with one button right. No, no, no. They're building up for it. I think the story's going to be this, though. It's going to be plausible deniability. So Putin's probably going to hand the nukes over to some Timothy McVeigh, inspired by General Flynn and Alex Jones. And they're going to hit up Seattle, and then they're going to say, this was all made possible through Elon Musk's X. Disease X, the mind viruses that radicalized domestic violent extremists that made them susceptible to Russian propaganda and eventually hooked them up with the bomb. So that's how it's going to play out, in my opinion. And this is very consistent with the symbolism of 6/11, 11/6. By the way, I have a really good video to parse through on the subject of Barbieheimer. And it goes into the connection between Barbie at Oppenheimer and Atomic Blonde. It's one of these videos that does a deep dive into the symbolism of a number of movies, just overlapping. Let's see if I can get to that here shortly. But it was pointed out that the Oppenheimer movie and Barbie both have connections between the two of them to 9/11 and the Manhattan Project, Manhattan, New York, Barbie. When you put it together, Barbie has the 2001 Space Odyssey theme attached to it. You can kind of extrapolate from it a number of things that just, again, it's in a very interesting way. It shows how all these stories are threaded together. And they have overlapping predictive programming, especially when you go into Kubrick's work. But let me see if I can pull up that video. A couple other things. Scarlett Johansson's in a movie coming up very soon called Fly Me to the Moon. about faking the moon landing to trick the Russians. So they're already rolling out like one of their major damage control lines. But now she's in the news. Scarlett Johansson says OpenAI ripped off her voice for ChatGPT. She claims she turned down an invitation and they just took it anyway. That's kind of like the story in Black Mirror, where I think Miley Cyrus is an actress in this episode where her aunt is her manager, her music manager. She's no longer into it, so her aunt just replaces her with a simulation. Last week, OpenAI revealed a new conversational interface with an expressive synthetic voice strikingly similar to the AI assistant played by Scarlett Johansson in the movie Her. And then they disabled it over the weekend. So Her, interestingly here, winner of Academy Awards Best Original Screenplay, it stars Scarlett Johansson and Joaquin Phoenix. And what was pointed out by someone in our Gilded server here is that you've got Joaquin Phoenix, very significant name, Phoenix, of course. We often get into this one, but a Scarlet woman, Scarlett Johansson, and the color in the background is pink, Barbie pink, or like the background of King Charles's painting, or the sky that weekend, or Godzilla's spikes on his back, or the soil tackifier in Maui. Like pink has been a pretty consistent theme through all of this. And I guess it's worth mentioning that when it comes to magic and the occult and all of that, uh, colors colors figure very prominently. It's like numbers, words, names, sounds, but a lot of time it's easy to overlook what's right in your face when it comes to the use of significant colors, and pink is a very important one. So here we have it, movie about the atomic bomb, movie about a blonde heroine. He's showing how the movie posters, you put them side by side, you get atomic blonde. So this is a video by, and I'll put the link below. It's 22 minutes long. I won't go through all of it. It's by Finis Temporis, but it's called Barbenheimer Atomic Blonde 911. And the connections here, it's pretty irrefutable, what he has come up with here. And if you haven't seen Barbie, I recommend it. There's a scene here that this is pretty deep. You've got the character played by Ryan Gosling goes into the real world because he comes from Barbie Land, where it's run by women. So he goes to the real world and it's all men and buildings, and he's walking by the Century City Twin Towers. Now, the Century City Twin Towers have the same architect as the World Trade Center, one. Two, in the movie Fight Club, when they're talking about putting gelatin around the columns of various buildings in order to destroy them, when they're talking about it, the Century City Twin Towers are right behind the main character. And remember, rather it's the Gelatin B. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Gelatin B, the group that was on the 93rd floor of the Twin Towers doing all kinds of art projects. And many think this is when they created the 9/11 jumpers. They created the footage that was going to be used on 9/11. This group, Gelatin B, mysteriously said, and they kind of went silent. I mean, I think it's one of the big tells that the whole thing was a setup, but the gelatin is what I'm referring to. The gelatin wrapped columns reference in Fight Club. Because Gelatin B, or the B thing, here it is, I'll put it up on the screen. World Trade Center Foreign Art Students Balcony 9/11 Gelatin Conspiracy. Interesting story here about the gelatin, the B thing. The idea here is that these 15 or so artists on the 91st floor made all the scenery that you would have needed for the jumpers. Now, what's interesting about it is that in their own papers, in their own release, they said that their art exhibit would be viewed, it would be exhibited on 9/11. So it's like, well, was it? But anyway, getting back to the Century City Twin Towers, here they are in the Barbie movie, and Ryan Gosling is walking by. And as he's walking by, it's playing the opening song from 2001 A Space Odyssey. And 2001 A Space Odyssey, of course, predictive programming for 9/11 like crazy. Even, I mean, down to the Monolith Hilton Hotel at Ground Zero. But I'll play a clip just to give you an idea. Again, Finis Temporis, excellent work. Here they play 2001 again.
What's up, man?
We got a man up.
Anyway, he goes deep. There's 20 minutes of material here. He emphasizes how Oppenheimer is consistently shown with the K6 badge, which I've connected again to 11.6, 611. It's an inverted 911. Among other things, you could also note that the film on IMAX was 11 miles long and weighed 600 pounds. Now, something else, because of the movie being linked with Oppenheimer and Barbieheimer memes, a lot of people in Japan were offended. So in Japan, there was a trend on social media to link Barbieheimer with 9/11 memes. And it's just one of these trends, but Finis Temporis has made this correlation. This is all likely intentional. Anyway, I'm just scratching the surface here, but it's pretty unmistakable, the general message here, and messaging in general, that all of these various psyops are interconnected. He connects it to the movie Atomic Blonde, which has to do with the Berlin Wall, which I believe the date was, what, 11/9? Yeah, November the 9th, 1989, the fall of the Berlin Wall, which is a huge part of this Atomic Blonde movie, which he connects again to a number of other things like K9, the dog on 9/11, Sirius, his name was Sirius, the dog that died in the towers. I'll put a link to this below. It's called Barbenheimer Atomic Blonde 9/11. It's fascinating. We've already made many connections between Barbieheimer and Godzilla, which has been connected with Oppenheimer, as Godzilla is a metaphor for the atomic bomb. And it's really just Babylon and the Beast, Barbie and the bomb. These things are all basically symbolic, but this is just another level. Alright, I'm catching up on comments. HLG says, Frappy High Day. J Diggs, Atomic Blonde was a movie from 2017 starring Charlize Theron. Yes. Century City CC33, good call there. And yeah, there's a lot of that around this whole thing. Twin Towers with 33 years old, 1968 to 2001. Space Odyssey also came out at the same time. 9/11 was instituted as the national emergency number in 1968. Lots of 33s. I mean, the whole thing, again, it's suggestive of pre-planning decades in advance. I mean, the Pentagon's construction began on 9/11, 1941. 77 feet tall, hit by Flight 77. The numbers tell the story in a whole other way. Lord Laney says, Sirius radio emblem is a dog. Yeah, the dog star thing is fascinating. We talk about it often in the Truman Show. It's the dog star that falls and wakes him up. It's the star of initiation. Every Masonic lodge has Sirius on the wall. New Year's Day, the ball dropping, is actually a global celebration of Sirius. 9/11 is New Year's on the Coptic calendar, and the New Year's on the Egyptian calendar is noted when Sirius rises directly above the sun, the heliacal rising of Sirius. So Sirius and New Year's are very much interconnected. But also, when you go into Jim Carrey, interestingly enough, who has a lot to say about the number 33, manifestation, reincarnation, he is in other movies, like, for example, the number 23. Well, the number 23 is based on Robert Anton Wilson's book, The Cosmic Trigger, which is about the number 23 and the dog star. He calls the dog star the cosmic trigger, that it is sending messages that if you pick up on it, it will trigger your awakening to, quote, cosmic consciousness. Well, anyway, he's the source of the book, the number 23 in that movie. And in that movie, Jim Carrey goes crazy when he comes across all these various synchronicities with the number 23, the color pink. But anyway, in that movie, I believe he's a dog catcher. And so the dog catcher thing, again, lots of dog references. But Jim Carrey has predictive programming connecting him to psyops going back. I think even Ace Ventura. I think he's like a dog catcher, dog bounty hunter. But he's a private eye trying to find this dog at the beginning. But he even has like 311. There's all kinds of 311 stuff around him. We'll have to do a deep dive onto various actors as we do directors. Ted Stryker says, I saw a meme today about Freemasons, 3 bases, 3 strikes, 3 outs, and the compass shape of the playing field. Interesting. I've seen some kind of description of baseball as an allegory for life and for confronting and defeating the demiurge. And I believe there's some kind of significance in the distance from the pitcher's mound to home plate. I'll see if I can find that. But yeah, it's definitely very Masony. Here it is. This is from Quora.com. Home plate is 60 feet 6 inches. I'll see if I can find that article. Here it is. The Diamond Way from Southern Cross Review. I've read this one before. It's baseball as an esoteric ritual. The Diamond Way, baseball as esoteric ritual. It wouldn't surprise me. I'll probably dig into that later. All of these games are all based, all these ball games. It's ball worship. Ball's actually one of the names of their earth god. Aries 1 says, Jim Carrey acts like a retired astronaut now. Jim Carrey Illuminati confirmed. Yes, well, Jim Carrey is an actor that really clued me into how the same actor will carry certain clues or roles through multiple different movies that are not connected, but the subtext is the same. And that's what's one of the more fascinating things about analyzing mass media this way, is that it truly does have an esoteric side, which is pretty much consistent with it being a religion, which always have the exoteric for the sheeple, the masses, and then the initiated interpretation for those who know how to see. Kevin Mooring says he's another comedian that leaks truths. Remember, he was an anti-vaxxer before CV. Okay. Yeah, I don't trust any of these celebrities. I feel like whenever they drop these truths, it's obviously a limited hangout op and a diffusion of anything meaningful. And why is it always that, the guy who's going to drop the most significant bits of truth about this, the reality, the nature of this reality, the ones who are going to really drop the things that should be paradigm shocks, have to be jesters. They have to be clowns. Is it so the message is not taken seriously? All right, let's move on. We were talking about space junk, which didn't exist until Neil deGrasse Tyson and Joe Rogan talked about it. And at the time, Joe was like, has anything been hit by space junk? And Neil was like, drew a blank. So I think this is just like a propaganda line they started dropping. But then they started feeding more stories out there, space junk, and then Moonfall came out. And Moonfall is by Roland Emmerich. Roland Emmerich is the guy who did Independence Day. Now the significance here is after 9/11, people compared it to Independence Day because it was within their frame of reference. Kind of like whenever the power goes out now, people say it's leave the world behind. The purpose of these movies is to fill up the popular imagination with the types of imagery and themes that are going to be brought to you on the news. So when you watched Independence Day, they were preparing you for falling buildings in New York, for catastrophes, for everybody staring at the president for answers, from an alien invasion, alien attack. Well, Moonfall, same director. This movie seems to be promoting or preparing us for not the moon falling necessarily, but space junk, satellites falling. So we've been inundated with the imagery that will get us to believe the news. And they normalize this type of stuff, and eventually people just accept it. Okay, space junk's a new issue. People used to care about the oceans, whales and stuff, but now it's about space environmentalism. Anufal says, in the tarot, the Fool card is revelation. Yeah, the Fool is very much like a Joker in a sense. And it represents a couple of things. The Fool is the person who's wise enough to realize he doesn't know everything and then begins with a blank slate. But it could also be someone who's just completely naive. It's the starting point, but the idea here is that you would never completely know it all. Space junk, also want to point out, space junk obviously doesn't exist. And what they're doing is they're pointing their fingers mostly at Elon Musk, at the private sector. And they're making it out to be a problem because low Earth orbit is a global commons. And if one rich guy can screw it up because he's trying to provide cheap internet so people could get his hate memes, it could lock down the entire world. So Elon Musk is the leading cause of space junk, which could again destroy space for everybody. Space will no longer be safe. Now, cyberspace happens to be destroyed right now, or practically it's being destroyed as we speak by what? Mind junk. Mind viruses. X, disease X. So is it a coincidence that Elon Musk is the leading propagator of mind junk and the leading polluter of space with space junk? Not a coincidence, because space is the mind. As Linda Curtis pointed out, space is just an allegory for controlling our minds at inner space. So the point they're making in this as above, so below kind of way is that we have to curtail the power of the individual. That an individual could accrue so much power and wealth that they can ruin the commons, that they cannot be allowed access to everybody's mind. That it has to be filtered through government approved outlets, censors. The government needs to trump, the public needs to trump the private. Collective needs to stop these destructive individuals. Elephant Tusk says Musk is trying to promote an X smartphone. Yeah, I'll just wait for the implantable. Mango says Elon was on Bloomberg looking at Vivitech answering questions. Now, one other thing here. Musk is just LARPing as an alt-right based meme lord. It's all a ruse, obviously, because he's faking space. So he's pretty. If it wasn't for his space fakery, he might be a believable character. But Mousegate happened. You can't erase that. And speaking of Elon, and look, I want to put a moratorium on talking about Alex Jones, Taylor Swift, and Elon Musk. I actually blocked him on Twitter. But I don't know if this is personal or not. I go on to Spaces on X, and I can no longer do video. Whenever you go to Spaces, it gives you the option, enable video or no. So I started doing video, and I would draw and talk while just streaming video. I woke up this morning and there's no video button. So I'm like, what is that? So anyway, I switched to my other account, the button's there. So I just cancel my subscription there and I move on to the next one. I try it out, it works, an hour later it's gone. So my enable video buttons have been disappearing. Hey, this is interesting. Last night I woke up, this is kind of random, I just got this notification on my Reddit. Last night I woke up and I thought I heard a plane crash, like Donnie Darko style, and I thought I saw a flash outside. And I just kind of ignored it after a while because I didn't hear any sirens. But here I'm looking at some notes. We had a boom. Morris and Manal shook the windows, big flash, set the dogs barking, 3:45. Had to be close. Yeah, I definitely heard that, and I was close by. Maybe it was a transformer blowing up. But also, behind the place where I live, there's this big area where people throw their old furniture and mattresses, and that was incinerated as well when I woke up. Okay, someone else here, Jed says, I live near this cross street, Morris Manal. I woke up to the boom. When I first moved to the neighborhood, I'd hear these regularly. Okay. I recently found out that there was a kid in the neighborhood who would take propane tanks into the arroyo at Matheson Park and detonate them. He eventually got caught, which is why he stopped. Okay, there's a couple of videos. There's a shadow cast downward indicating the flash and the explosion was 1,500 feet in the air. So it wasn't the kid of the propane tank. Okay, anyway, booms in my neighborhood. Side note. Maybe these were drone strikes aimed at perhaps me. What are they going to do? What are they going to do to combat a growing wave, a tidal wave of media skeptics? Because once you adopt the skeptical posture when it comes to mass media, you would never go back. You would never go back to believing. There's no sense in it. It's way too stressful anyway. Who needs the psychosomatic effects, the nocebo? Who needs it? Peace of mind is achievable, and I don't think they want you to have it. I think you're not supposed to feel like, you're supposed to feel guilty. Oh, you have peace of mind, you're not agitated, you're not paying attention. And to that I would say, if you're agitated, if you don't have peace of mind, then you're plugged into their system. I mean, the attention economy is there to just extract from you 24/7. And what are they extracting? Your time, which is more valuable than money, but they're also getting all kinds of action out of you. Your emotion, your money, your opinions, your participation online. There's quite a lot that goes into becoming an info warrior, a digital soldier, and a lot of people invest so much into it. We've been following a lot of this stuff, like on the Twitter sphere, and these people have entered into a different reality. I got to bring this one up. I've been going through Reddit quite a bit just to follow. This is a pretty good one. It's called Cult Headquarters. An Anon clearly remembers things that never happened. So this is what I mean when I say alternate reality game. And this does not just pertain to cult members. This also pertains to the mainstream. It's the biggest cult, so it doesn't really get branded as such. So here's what Anoner has posted on Telegram. Didn't Trump and the military rescue hundreds of children from beneath Central Park? We saw two ships, Mercy and Compassion. Nurses were crying because a majority of the children never saw light, and the nurses were needed underground. The military had to figure out how to get ventilators down there to bring them up. I remember this. And I remember like Cuomo was acting like it never happened. Unbelievable. The pieces all fit. Someone else suggests here, there is live footage. I recall seeing tons of photos, tents set up, and nurses were sobbing. The ships were there at Trump's orders, and the children were not to be photographed. Many of them were hybrids who had been experimented on. They were immediately boarded on the ships for top-notch care. I did see a photo of a small boy, but he was not all boy. I saw his nose. It was a pig snout. Then I saw soldiers in tears, but they put up sheets to give the children privacy. Trump, I recall, gave strict orders that no press would be on board. Another commenter says, yep, I saw a few photos of hybrids with the special forces. I didn't know what it was, so I researched it, and I found out that Gitmo Special Forces do crossbreeding of children and animals, which is shocking. I also remember photos of the triage tents with tiny beds. New York was buzzing with leaked information, and many found out about these children and babies bred underground. I won't go into the horrifying details of what the military found, but I can tell you what nightmares are made of. Evil beyond human imagination. Right, because none of this is human imagination. This all happened because they say, I quote, remember. I remember. Even less credible than the Mandela effect. The Q effect. Just in, 300 Boeing planes used by United and American Airlines have potentially fatal fault that could cause jets to explode mid-air in the latest scandal to hit company. Again, I just want to point out predictive programming, leave the world behind, still coming true. And it's barely been 6 months, hasn't even been a year, and we have been living in that movie. Aries 1 says Trump was there handing out Happy Meals. You know, I think it's problematic that he's always handing out pizza. Like, they're sending mixed messages here. On the one hand, QAnoners are taught that pizza is evil, and it's a symbol for evil stuff. But on the other hand, Trump hands out pizza to the fire department. And I like how QAnoners worship the firemen and the police and the soldiers like they're all holy warriors. It's such a strange alternate reality that they have entered into. But they reinforce each other, and there's no wrong answers. You can believe in hybrid pig children bred beneath Central Park, rescued by the military, with nurses crying, and you can remember that, and people will believe it. All right, let's move on here. Just pointing this out too because Boeing has been consistently pointed out with whistleblowers dying. Like, what is the narrative here? Well, along with Boeing, we have this recently delayed NASA launch. So it seems like Boeing is being mentioned again and again ahead of this launch. It's the Boeing crew flight test. So I'm like, what could go wrong? The flight test currently scheduled to launch early May will transport Wilmore and Williams. Now this one has been delayed, but WW33. So there's already some code in here. 9 hours ago, NASA announces new launch date for Boeing's Starliner astronaut crewed mission after several days. And now we're in Gemini, and it's 2 astronauts. So you got the twin thing, Gemini twins, Wilmore, Williams. So Will. Again, WW, Gemini twins, much delayed launch, and it's got Boeing on it. What could go wrong? NASA orders another delay for the hard luck Starliner. So everybody's watching. Test now targeted to launch no earlier than 4:43 on Tuesday, May 21st. Okay, that got pushed back. Again, they're building up tension here, dramatic tension. Are they going to blow up the twins? And I brought this up the other day, the Gemini mission patch, the NASA Gemini mission patch, looks exactly like 9/11. Just pointing it out, twin towers. Here you have the Gemini patch with the twins, and it's got a star at each spot where the trade towers were hit by planes. Joined by William Niedrich, says cool name, Will. Yep, well, very Masony. WW is 3-3. And then, of course, twins, 2 Wills. So something's up. Something is up, and they've been making a point about delaying it. And every time I see the name Boeing, and so I'm like, okay, this has got to be leading to something. Cy Obstacles remarked earlier today, isn't Memorial Day weekend kind of an unofficial kickoff to summer riot season? The cities should be aflame soon. Yeah, agreed. I think that this is the weekend after which the riots are going to kick off. I don't know if it's going to be a summer of MAGA. I don't know if I don't know if BLM is being mobilized. It's not organic. They can't just run a psyop and then people go riot. They have to pay people to do the rioting. It'll likely just be CGI at the next one anyway. Blue Montauk says, my personal prediction is that NASA will admit the Earth is flat and there will be a slow reveal. Then, they will avoid and dismiss all their lies and BS and take zero accountability. They will make up scientific reveals and speak of simulations. They are busted too soon. They don't have a choice. We know. That's from Blue Montauk. Just a side note, I think it's kind of optimistic. Commenter says humans have the potential of infinite stupidity. Yeah, I think that there's a likelihood that yeah they are losing some credibility, but the visual illiteracy is getting worse. TikTok has to label things AI or people don't know. Hey, this is a cartoon and this isn't. They've done this intentionally. This is cognitive sabotage. One of the meanings, I believe, in 2001 is two into one, meaning merging the dream world with the real world. So the world stage is no longer a reflection of the real world. It is, in fact, an augmented version of it that is constrained, it is full of hyperstitions, and it's not the terrain. But they merge the two into one. And as the visual illiteracy increases and people become increasingly uh, metaverse oriented, the less likely they'll see through anything. They won't believe it unless they see it on TV. Nixon said that. And that's probably true. Erica Creech says Boeing only made the capsule, the rockets as an Atlas V, the cause of the delays. Oh, there's another reference to Atlas. I mentioned Atlas earlier, the Atlas comet blowing up. Well, anyway, Boeing only made the capsule, but something could go wrong with the capsule. I'm thinking that this is going to be a potential disaster. Okay, moving on here. I'm not optimistic about a big reveal. I'm scrolling through our Gilded. If you're not on Gilded, I recommend it. Just go to ips.monster, click the link. Breaking, at least 4 dead and more wounded after a stage collapsed for the Mexican presidential candidate. New York Times is reporting 6 dead. Allegedly, the wind blew it over. Posted by Jay Diggs. A lot of stuff happening to presidents. Presidents crashing in their helicopters. Presidential candidates. Threats against Trump being highlighted again. By the way, just an update. Service papers have been sent. I'm waiting an update from the process server, so everything's moving according to plan with the court case. I hope to have an update next week. So this is the Dragon Moon, by the way. Full moon tonight. Moon in Sagittarius. Full flower moon, but in China it's known as the Dragon Moon. And this is Year of the Dragon. Another link, in a way, to the Dragon's Tail spire burning at the Copenhagen, that stock exchange, the oldest stock exchange. They call it the Dragon's Tail. And then you had the Burning Man, Maxwell Azarello, who was from St. Augustine, which was burned by St. Francis. I'm sorry, Sir Francis Drake Dragon. And someone had connected this Drake beefing with Kendrick Lamar with this slaying of the dragon. But the dragon stuff has been brought up quite a lot recently, so just note here, Dragon Moon. The Sir Francis Drake died at sea on the Challenger's explosion anniversary date. It's just like there's quite a lot here with the immolation, dragon's fire. We kind of got into this about a week ago. Laura Loomer says, I spent yesterday with reporters from Norway who flew to Florida to interview and profile me about Trump's campaign. They shadowed me for a day for a big story that will be featured in Norway's largest publication. Jay Diggs says maybe that was the Aftenbladet guys. Yeah, we're still waiting on the documentary that came through here last September, which I expect will be a hit piece, but I'm fine with that. That was kind of the point. Kevin Mooring says it's going to be a huge drum roll until Joker 2. Yeah, Joker 2 comes out on 10/4. So 10/4, a month before the election. All right, let's move on. I think I'm caught up on Gilded. Again, if you want to join Gilded, just go to ips.monster, click the link, and we'll be following up on this Stu Peters Extreme event. And this is going to be in October, where he'll be giving a seminar on how to tie a noose and how to burn books. Here's Elon Musk tweeting, "Some people still believe the legacy media." Again, it's always suspect when one of the chief world view manipulators, we're talking about space fakery here. I mean, that's mind control central. That's the top of the mind control pyramid. For him to go out there and then talk about how Twitter is where hoaxes come to die. Twitter is where psyops go to die, is what he said. It's like, yep, he's definitely getting ahead of it, which is intriguing to watch. It shows you how critical this damage control is. And if you think about it, this is somewhat damaging. Conspiracy theories are not. What we are doing here is the only fundamental challenge to media. Nothing else really challenges it. Everything else is from within the box. And this model cannot be discredited from within the box. Salty Siren says, "Hilarious. People think a billionaire is an underdog, both Elon and Trump." Yeah, Trump's a billionaire, sure. He says he's a billionaire, but I've never seen a billionaire, beg so much. Just $5, buy my NFTs. And I kind of thought he was cheapening his brand with the NFTs where he's in these different costumes. And it turned out that the NFTs where Trump is in like coveralls or cowboy suit or cop uniform, it was taken from a Walmart catalog and they put his face on it. But this is The Apprentice season 35, I think. I think it's just a continuation of the same reality TV show. Kevin Mooring, Stu, still pushing nonsense, Illuminati confirmed. Oh yeah, he follows a very similar trajectory. A lot of these truthers are either failed comedians, become truther provocateurs, or they are failed rappers, and they become truther provocateurs. And Stu Peters was a rapper. But Elon Musk is a billionaire that the lefties are afraid of and the rights worship. And he's on the opposite side of the fence as Bill Gates, who is a billionaire the right-wingers fear and the left-wingers worship. And it's always a savior thing here, too. We're talking about how this is like worship, it's a religion. We're truly looking at saviors. If global warming strikes tomorrow, who's going to save you? Well, the guy with the rocket to Mars. You have to buy your seats to make it to the space heaven, but Pope Elon will sell tickets, or likely offer indentured servitude for those of you who can't afford tickets. All right, phones are open. Numbers on the screen. It is 563-999-3664. Oh yeah, the Trump Bible, $60, has an American flag on it. And then golden Trump sneakers. Far-right broadcaster Stu Peters plans extreme accountability weekend of bloody Bidens and book burnings. Again, he promoted me. He promoted my city council speech about the ISS. And so I retweet him to friends and family, and then he comes out with this. But what is he going to do? He's going to teach you how to burn books and tie a noose. Okay, here's something else. I didn't know this is a real thing. This is from Conspiracy Nopal. Do any of our resident globe skeptics have strong thoughts about the final experiment? For anyone that doesn't subscribe to Alternative Cosmology Monthly, the final experiment is a trip to Antarctica to observe whether the 24-hour sun is a real phenomena. If so, it's a major problem for Flat Earth. 12 Flat Earthers have been invited, and one will be paid for, so that a lack of funding won't prevent Flat Earth representation. If you're a globe skeptic, are you looking forward to the results? If all 12 Flat Earth influencers decline the trip, will it impact your perspective? Commenter says, we need a TV show where these guys try to find an ice wall. I mean, how many seasons of Oak Island has there been and they haven't found S? Someone says, it matters who it is, they can easily hire shills. Most people have a price. Uh, Dark CC Man says, if it's not you yourself, then it's Cisse, hearsay. Now that's great. He must be a listener. Hearsay, we all know. You hear it, you say it. It's not really evidence. Well, Cisse is the visual equivalent of hearsay, and we live in a world that's mostly constructed by Cisse. Interestingly, I came up with this term. I coined it, and I put it into the autohoaxology lexicon. Within a week, the DHS stole it, and they created something called Say Day, and it's a hashtag. And the hashtag is for if you see something, say something. So instead of, I mean, what they've done is they've taken this term that I meant to mean be skeptical about fake news and psyops, and the DHS, which is like psyop central, they took it to misdirect it. But anyway, let's see who's been invited. It says here, who was invited? All the big names: Witsit, Gets Dearth, Eric Dubay, Oakley, and others. It's 24 have been invited so far. Dearth won a poll, and he's getting the free ticket if he accepts it. If he turns it down, they will invite the next person until someone accepts it. Dearth previously said that if the sun doesn't set in Antarctica summer, that it disproves flat Earth. So he's talked himself into a corner. Okay, so apparently there's an opportunity for somebody to go to Antarctica and watch the 24-hour sun. And yeah, obviously, if someone doesn't go, it raises a question: why not? Yep, CSA is one of our words. I'm glad it's being used. But this is over at Conspiracy Nopal. Mango says, let's crash the party, Tim. Invite yourself. Look, I'll go. I will 100% go. I don't have any kind of obligations tying me down here. So if somebody knows somebody who knows somebody, let them know that I will volunteer. In fact, I'll just post a link to the Reddit. And if you all just want to kind of, informally invite me, I'll make it a point to share this link in the chat. And what we'll do is we'll try to get my name on the list. And I'll go down there and I'll look for the 24-hour sun. Maybe I'll take some pictures with some penguins. Do you all remember that horrible account of what it takes to be initiated into the Order of the Penguin with Admiral Byrd? It has to do with horseradish and sailors dressed like mermaids. It sounds horrible. Order of the Penguin, Admiral Byrd. So Rear Admiral Byrd describes this initiation that one must go through in order to go past the 69-degree south parallel. Here we go. Richard Byrd's Masonic Order of the Penguin and Antarctica Lodge 777. There's an entire story about it, and there's a first-hand account of the expedition. But yes, it is a fact that he created his own Masonic order called Order of the Penguin. But the actual trip over there was described in this first-hand account here. I found it here. This is pretty bad. USS Philippine Sea, a seaman's story from southpole.com. This is pretty bad. Operation High Jump 1946. Okay, here we go. It was announced. Now this is a story about Operation High Jump aboard USS Philippine Sea, the largest aircraft carrier of the Essex class, fitted for a voyage to Antarctica, and it was headed by Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd. It was exciting to watch Admiral Byrd in the early morning hours, accompanied by the Marine Security Guard running the length of the flight deck. Passing the South American coastline, it was difficult to comprehend the fact that it would only be a short while before the whole picture would change from a warm, tropical setting to massive chunks of icebergs with not a tree in sight. It was announced over the loudspeaker we would soon be crossing the legendary equator. We were informed that an unforgettable experience was in store for those of us who had never been in this territory. I was excited but apprehensive because I heard there would be some sort of initiation, and we who were called polywogs would be the ones to undergo the initiation. Soon I was to realize that it was nothing like the ones I experienced in my school years. The day of admission. Now, this is pretty bad. King Neptune was portrayed by the chief's boatswain's mate. His word was law, nobody crossed him. He was bedecked in a grass skirt, king's crown, ill-fitting bra, and brandished a forked spear. Two of his maidens were also mates, dressed similar but without crowns, and they were wearing wigs made from ship's mops. Baby Neptune was short, stocky, must have weighed 300 pounds, and stood 5'5". The stout fellow appeared on an oversized bed sheet, draped around his middle like a diaper. Admiral Byrd proclaimed the day of reckoning, and the activities began. My task was to approach baby Neptune, who was seated on a milking stool, and something yellowish was dripping from his belly at the navel. I discovered as I approached that it was hot horseradish mustard. "Lick it," he ordered. "What?" I questioned, with reluctance, pleading. I said, "Lick it off," the chief insisted, with stronger tones. It gets pretty bad. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of this. He climbs a rope ladder to a platform. There's a water tank. It's just humiliation ritual after humiliation ritual. But at the end, they get their certificate and they are inducted into this. Here it is. "To all sailors and aviators, wherever ye may be, know by these presents that John Ragnar was a member of the original crew commissioned on the USS Philippine." So they have their little Order of the Penguin plaque. Order of the Penguin, South Pole, signed by Rear Admiral Byrd. Strange story. I'll post a link if you care to read it. It's pretty graphic. Antarctica, a personal experience. I'd like to think it's just fiction. Upside Down Guy has passed out 5 wrenches. Megan Raw, Psyops Matter, Joey Kirk, Shadow and Light, Chris Johnson. WTF, says Lord Laney. Wow, says Jennifer Reeves. Oh no, this is just scratching the surface. I just don't feel comfortable with it, to be honest. But it's Admiral Byrd setting up Masonic lodges in Antarctica and then putting anyone who wants to go that far south through this humiliating ritual initiation with sailors dressed as mermaids and gross stuff being done with horseradish. Mr. Trustworthy says, "A new Mandela effect is on the horizon. Malcolm X's birthday was always May 19th, yet on Instagram I saw a busy thread celebrating his May 23rd birthday. Geminis would have claimed him but never have." Oh, those were 10 wrenches. I missed a few. Awesome. We have a growing body of Blue Wrench Lodge members. If you're hanging out in chat, just comment and I'll hand out wrenches, but also there are people gifting memberships, and I do have members only content, which is usually made public a day after. Will Niedrich said, "We had the same kind of initiations when we crossed the equator and international dateline." Okay, so it's kind of standard. The horseradish. My point in bringing this up was really to focus on Masonic Lodge 777. And the number, what does that have to do with it? I have a few ideas, but... Okay, let's move on. Trump was in the Bronx, no big deal. Seems like it was taking place in an area where nothing could go wrong. So we're still looking at 8/4. But the next big date, next week on the 29th, which is JFK's birthday, we expect there to be a gathering at Dealey Plaza. Then we have the upcoming launch, the Boeing Starliner to look forward to. I expect a disaster. And 6/11, Seattle's supposed to get nuked. Alright, moving on here. Oh yes, Crisis Actor St. Floyd's Day is May 25th. That's such an obvious psyop, but you'll note that there's two perspectives on it. One, he was killed by systemic racism and oppression. Or two, he was killed by fentanyl, facilitated by Joe Biden's open borders. Both of these perspectives believe that George Floyd died. One perspective allows left to blame right, and the other allows right to blame left. The truth of it is, Floyd is hanging out with the president of Iran, Derek Chauvin, Kobe Bryant, and Heath Ledger. Some island somewhere. Jessica Lynn says Bird died the day COVID was declared a pandemic in 1957, 575G, and now it's about bird flu. Interesting. Birds are fake. By the way, the birds are fake conspiracy theory, if you didn't know, was started by the Parkland High acting troupe. You know, the Parkland shooting. They were kind of mad that nobody believed their performances, so they started a fake conspiracy movement called Birds Are Fake. They're at Epstein Island. You know what? There could be a lot of islands. Terra Mar. Remember Epstein? Not Epstein, his girlfriend. Ghislaine Maxwell was a citizen of Terra Mar, it was revealed. And so Terra Mar doesn't really exist as a place necessarily, but it's like the kingdom of Terra Mar. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. Ghislaine Maxwell claims to be a citizen of Terra Mar, a marine conservation charity. Basically, a lot of land out there in the open seas that's not documented, uncharted waters. There could be a lot of land out there. You know, if there is more land, if the globe is a lie, there's no reason to assume that the additional continents are only beyond Antarctica. If the whole thing is a fraud, there could be continents that are within the area described on the globe that have just been conveniently left off. T-Dog says, is IPS running a sewing machine in the background? No, that's a fan. I should probably turn it off. I didn't realize it was that loud. Okay, moving on here. Phones are still open if anyone has anything to add. I'm going through my Twitter feed as well. Really the top story, I think, with this Joe Rogan thing, by the way, is they're diffusing the criticism of the bomb, because they're going to do the bomb. They're going to do the mushroom cloud. And when it happens, they don't want too many of us saying that it's fake. They want people fighting over who did it. They don't want people saying that it didn't happen. And so I'm kind of thinking here that what better way to diffuse criticism than to get in front of it, and once you're in front of it, then it can be, oh, Joe Rogan said it. So I kind of think it might be damage control. All right, let's see here. Alert issued for Trump Bronx rally. Be on the lookout for infiltrators. Didn't happen. Likely the whole thing was just, again, staffed with a bunch of actors, undercovers, etc. MAGA cultist Lance Wallanu says, future historians will date the beginning of the Third Great Awakening to when Christians prayed Trump into office. I've been following a lot of the Christian nationalist conferences, a lot of these speakers, and this Christification of Trump is, I think, unlike anything that's been applied to a president before.
In the Third Great Awakening, people don't know. They're going to look back on it in the future. And I honestly believe they'll look back, and I know this is going to get me in trouble. They're going to say, the populist civic awakening began when believers prayed in Trump to disrupt the status quo. I believe that. The only people that don't agree with me are religious people and people that got devils.
And people that got devils. So if you don't believe in Trump, you've got devils. And all these people clap like seals. New York announces citizen surveillance. Like the plot to a dystopian movie, New York will now monitor social media writings, collect data, and use law enforcement to crack down on any expression it deems to be hate speech. Getting into Minority Report territory here. A Trump supporter attacking a COVID testing station. Real great look here. Olivia, okay, now this is it too. This is the rapper. And that was him. The MAGA rapper did it. Trump supporter Sean Olivio attacked a COVID testing station. And here he is rapping. His rap name is DVS 7.0. I promised you cringe-entertaining MAGA rap. Well, here's some MAGA rap. And he's badly lip-syncing over his own rap.
I say they had a plan with the cops right underneath them. We'll use them, they'll panic, just watch. Next a riot, they won't trust the cops. Hell of a plot. Next we'll split the races, feed the hate with fake.
And the woman behind him is doing the Elaine. And if you don't know what the Elaine is, it's a reference to, and I think somebody might have posted it here. It's from Seinfeld, and it's this twitchy, embarrassing dance that Elaine does. But the Elaine dance is being done behind this MAGA rapper.
They'll panic, just watch. Next a riot, they won't trust the cops. Hell of a plot. Next we'll split the races, feed the hate with fakeness. Give them idols that worship and lack the sense to change it. Control the kids with some math.
Yeah, let's see if we can find Elaine. I'm looking forward to more of that. And these aren't controlled opposition agents there to make you all look crazy, to make MAGAs look crazy. And here's Elaine in the background. This is organic. You know, it's really easy for people to say, oh, Patriot Front, it's a bunch of feds. Are you sure about that? You're overestimating the other news consumers. Like, they're all critically thinking, and they're not just going to put on uniforms and march behind any Pied Piper. Armin Reese says, what will the auto hoax initiation ritual be, I wonder? Ooh, interesting. We could come up with something. Sledgehammering a television, perhaps? No, nobody watches TV anymore. We'll have to come up with something. I do like the idea of a Burning Man, but with a penguin. And I have spoken to an artist who does wrought iron sculpture. He made this big raven, and I'm like, you know, could you do a penguin, you know, with the built-in, you know, oven so we could burn stuff on the inside? And the answer was yes. All right, moving on. I'll keep you up to date on all the latest MAGA rap as it emerges. Super cringe, though. And yeah, cringe-ertainment is a thing. It's actually most of the internet, if you think about it. All right, let's move on. We talked about Moonfall a little bit. Again, we're being prepared for space junk. There's a lot of space junk news. Giant piece of space junk crashes down on farm of Canadian who intends to sell it and spend the money on a hockey rink. So my question here is, like, who determines whether it's real or not? Sort of like you are cooking breakfast and you see the face of Jesus on a piece of toast. Well, you have to get somebody from the Vatican to come down and approve that this is indeed a miracle. Otherwise, everybody could claim miracles and pilgrimages would happen and rake in all kinds of money. So it has to be like an approved miracle. Well, who is the approving authority for whether a piece of space junk is authentic or not? I could punch a hole in the roof, put a chunk of metal here, and call the news media, and maybe I'll have a couple of my friends crisis act for me and say they saw a light from the sky and heard a boom. In fact, a lot of people heard a boom last night. I heard it myself. I could call the news and say, last night at 3:45 I heard a boom and this piece of space junk landed in my office. Like, who's going to say that's not true? Like, they're programmed to automatically believe these things. So I'm wondering, you know, and then of course the value of it. Like, you had that individual in 2020 who sold one for millions of dollars. And what would happen, just hypothetically, if you had a spate of hoaxes, like 10, 15, 20 people claiming space junk because they see how much money it's worth? You know, people would do it. Scammers. How would they handle that? Because as it's set up right now, only NASA's allowed to scam us like that. What happens if people start getting into the business of scamming the public? Giant piece of space junk getting into the space scam. Crashes down on a farm and he's going to spend it on a hockey rink. Local farmer Barry Sawchuk discovered the charred 88-pound chunk of composite fibers while weeding his fields. Originally, I thought it was just garbage, but I had no idea. I don't build spaceships for a living, I farm. Okay, this has got to be a joke. Anyway, it says here he's going to use the proceeds to raise money for a hockey rink that's built in his town, and according to the report, they traced it to a SpaceX rocket, thanks Elon, launched in February. And this was part of a launch where the Dragon spacecraft was taking some people back down from the ISS. Statistically, space debris is most likely to splash down in the ocean, but once in a while they will drop into inhabited places. In 2022, a sheep farmer in New South Wales discovered what appeared to be a jettisoned piece once belonging to a SpaceX Dragon spacecraft. At terminal velocity, space junk can do real damage. Last month, NASA admitted that a piece of the ISS, which crashed through a roof in Naples, Florida, narrowly missing the child who was sleeping with. This is insane. They confirmed, though, it was from the ISS. It was only 1.6 inches in diameter. This one is much longer, 88 pounds. It was really just luck. If that had hit the middle of Regina or New York City, it would have killed someone. Experts have called for more stringent rules when it comes to launching satellites. Again, Elon Musk is at fault here. Space junk helmets. That's the next thing. Alright, let's move on here. Space junk Armageddon. I kind of thought the way it would work at some point was, because there's got to be a story here, and CubeSats is there's 42,000 CubeSats. That's how many he's putting up there. So there's going to be some kind of critical mass. They call it the Kessler syndrome, where one piece, it's another piece, it's another piece, and it becomes so chaotic up there that nobody can leave. And that's sort of the theme in Wall-E. Just so much space junk that we are landlocked. All right, let's see here. Going through your comments, I have a couple phone calls. I'm going to start answering the calls. Just hold on to the line. If you're on hold, there's like 4 people here. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hello, Tim. Hey, I was listening to you, and a couple things. You were talking about space junk falling,
Yes.
and if you live in New Mexico, there's a lot of petrified wood there in your area, and maybe you could just collect it and then just, I mean, not really falsify records, but just say it came from the moon, like moon broke off, a piece of the moon broke off and fell to Earth and fell in your backyard. And then you could sell the petrified wood as moon rocks.
That's actually believable. It's actually genius. Like if I had it in me to deceive the gullible public with false artifacts like that, if I was someone who would work at NASA, I would pull that off, because yes, it's true. The moon rock that NASA gave to Holland was made out of petrified wood. How would they
Yeah,
say?
I think there's multiple occasions of it.
Yeah, I would do it. Okay, so that would be a great starting point. You say, look, I was looking at the moon actually, and I thought I saw what looked to be a falling star, and I think it was just a moon rock that fell from the moon and it landed here. Again, who are they to say it's not true?
No, just say like you heard a big boom and you thought it was a firework until you went outside, and then you saw this what must be a meteorite or a comet in your backyard, and this is it.
Yeah, my whole
Oh
point.
wow, I'm googling it, and there's some really big. There's a lot of petrified wood in New Mexico.
I'm kind of questioning, how do they say it's not legit? Like, who are they to say it's fake? Like, if someone from the news said, I don't know if that's real, I could say, what are you, a flat earther? Like, how can they say it's not real? Like, I don't have to provide the burden of proof. But anyway,
Exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, they're not gonna get there with a temperature gun and be like, oh, it's room temperature.
yeah, well, nobody's ever explained it. I always bring this up whenever somebody's a moon landing believer. I ask them to explain the petrified wood, and they can't. The best explanation I got was someone said
Yeah, like
maybe they gave away the moon rocks to women to impress them, like Buzz Aldrin's giving away moon rocks, and in order to cover his tracks, he went out and gathered a bunch of petrified wood.
he also gives away his pockets are almost like super what do they call those things in video games? Uh Empty, just like his pockets are emptyless basically. Like he keeps finding stuff in his pockets that he went to the moon with.
Well, he also recently claimed that there was a monolith on one of the moons of Mars. Like, he makes all these claims, which, if you're a believer in the space program, you're in no position to say, I don't believe that. If you believe that man went to the moon, then who are you to say there's not a monolith on Phobos? Because Buzz Aldrin said there is. You see what I mean? It's kind of like you can't pick and choose which verses in your holy book to believe. And when it comes to NASA, you have to accept it all. There's no way to parse it.
Yeah. I kind of changing the subject. The in Dallas, I live in Dallas. So on the 29th, I should be available to go to the grassy knoll.
Okay, and are you willing to meet with a cinematographer, or if I have someone go there like a live streamer? I mean, you can live stream yourself, but I would certainly coordinate something if you want to do some reportage on our
I'm
behalf.
I'm hoping to run into Alex Stein. I'm guess like I messaged Alex Stein to see if he'd be there, but he hasn't replied. But
He'll be
if
easy to
he's in
find.
town,
Yeah,
he's most likely going to be there.
yeah, he'll be the guy um, doing drag to mock the libs. That's probably what he'll be doing. It won't be hard to find him.
Yeah, that's kind of like a Steven Crowder. Well, I guess everyone from the right dresses in drag to mock the libs.
Yeah, actually, he's Steven Crowder 2.0. I think that he was like Steven, because Steven Crowder stopped being funny. He got married, dragged down with kids, and then all the scandals came out about how he puts his junk on his coworkers' heads, his employees' heads. Like he's an abuser
Ugh.
of some kind. And so they kind of phased him out, and they brought in Alex Stain, who's never going to go away. But
It's,
yeah, he'll be
it's.
there. He'll be there.
I think it's. Is that a Mandela effect? Because I thought it was Stein.
Yeah, I think it. Honestly, I think it might be Stone. Sometimes I think he's Roger Stone's son. He calls himself Tucker Carlson's son. He is like the dollar store Tucker Carlson, but I don't know. Sometimes I think he's like Roger Stein's illegitimate kid because it just seems like he's been given the fast track to being a provocateur, in the political circus. But it's just one of my theories. Anyway,
Yeah,
hey,
well,
why
I
don't
mean,
you go though?
he's had a
Let me just really quick here.
low
If
Me Too.
if you're there in Dallas, um, definitely go. But let me know if you need me to find someone to stream it. Because what I need here is someone to report on behalf of IPR and ask questions of 5 or 6 people. Very simple, but I'd like to have a third party actually recording these back and forths. So if you want to do it, I can provide questions and I can help arrange it.
Well, off the top of your head, what is 1 or 2 questions that you would like to ask?
I would ask likely who is JFK Jr. Posing as? Vincent Fuchsia, -48, 107, or Vivek Ramaswamy? And we'll find out who they think is JFK Jr. I would ask about the age of JFK, and probably just a few other questions that I think would elucidate the situation because they're waiting for a 109-year-old to show up in a Lincoln, in a Ford Lincoln. And if you could rent a Ford Lincoln, that would be cool. But just drive up at the right time.
No, I mean those are pretty rare. But you know how like criminals return to the scene of the crime. Like, what if you sent me a picture of the person you're trying to serve, and what if he's there?
Oh, well,
Because like this is his baby, right? Isn't this his crime kind of type thing? Not really a crime, but this is his doing. So you would think he would show up every November or any chance he could get.
yeah, I would think he would be there with the cult members. Actually, that would likely be a place, but I actually have it covered. It's covered already. He's got an office space that I located in Illinois, and I think he's already been served. It
Yeah.
happened either on the door or somebody there at the office, but um, no, we don't need that. But we definitely need somebody there. We need boots on the ground to interview some people on the spot and create some
No,
content.
I would just be shocked. I would just be shocked if he's there because I've seen some photos of him, but it's been like 2 or 3 years to where now it's just like a generic description, and like the police lineup would be so vast. It'd be like uh, dark hair, Anglo. I don't know. But one last thing before I go. Have you heard of? It's kind of going on the Mandela thing with Bernstein. Have you heard of egg corns? The
Uh,
term egg corns.
egg corns. No, I have not. What are egg corns?
What? Well, have you know what an acorn is, right?
Yes, I do.
An acorn, like the little seed from the tree. A lot of people grow up learning that they're called egg corns. And there's this term to where like it's like butt naked and buck naked. There's a term to where it sounds plausible where you fill in words and it's kind of just like going through the universe as like not a false narrative, but something that you might have misheard, but it's plausible substitution. And an acorn is what I think the Mandela effect is a lot of. Like Interview with the Vampire, that's an acorn for sure because some people might have just misheard it, but they filled in what they misheard with an equal substitute.
Okay, I
Where
see
if
what
you
you're saying.
do a
Right.
Mandela, and if you do a Mandela thing, eventually you might want to look into acorns because acorns, it's like one of the biggest. It's like a media acorn for the most part.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I understand. For
Like
example, people are like, reality shifted. It used to be Smokey the Bear. Now it's Smokey Bear. Well, maybe you inserted the. So an egg corn is an alteration of a phrase through mishearing or reinterpreting one of its elements, creating a new phrase, but still makes sense and is plausible. So the Mandela effect might just be the egg corn effect. Fascinating.
yeah, exactly.
Fascinating. Okay, okay.
Because there's not one. Well, I guess there might be one, like with braces, non-braces. That sounds crazy. Um, I mean, most of them are acorns. It's just like a slight misinterpretation, and it's rewritten as something plausible but close to the same thing. It's like a reinterpretation of something close to it, but it's slightly off.
I'm going to include this in the Mandela Effect documentary that I'm working on. I appreciate that. All right, well, thank you for the call. I have another caller. Have a great day. Call back anytime.
Yep. Yep. Have a good night, man. Take it easy.
Infinite Plane Radio, thank you for holding. Hey, caller.
Hey, do you have other phone callers?
Nope, we just cleared the decks.
Do you have
Just,
other phone callers?
nope, you're the next caller. No one
Yeah,
else.
yeah, yeah. Listen, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about, but look, about that about that Mandela thing. Me and you are on the same page on that. I don't believe in the Mandela effect, but with the Dolly thing, are you telling me that you believe that Dolly never had braces?
Okay, with that one, it's interesting because most of the people who remember it haven't watched the movie or they're judging it off of that one scene. And so I would need to see other scenes in the movie where braces would have made sense. So no, I think it makes sense. Like as a scene, guy with braces, chick with braces, it
Yeah.
makes sense, but it's satisfying. But I don't think she ever had braces.
Well, here's the thing. I like I said, I agree with you on because I don't believe in the Mandela thing. You know how I believe that they did that when because in the movie theaters, I've explained that. I was the first one to explain that to everybody. In the movie theaters, they showed her with the braces. Okay? But when they released it on video or on whatever the hell it is, that VHS at the time or CDs, who knows, they released it without the braces. Because look, there's no doubt that I completely recollect seeing her smiling, and he smiled at her because, I mean, the guy who had the metal mouth, he smiled at her because she had the braces also. But here's the thing: could it have been that it was outside of the movie where they showed it in a commercial or something like that? Maybe that could have been it. I don't know, because I don't remember the whole plot of the movie and whether they showed her with braces before or after. Because you could be right about that. That's a really good point you're making about how come you don't hear about the other parts of the movie. You know?
Yes, yes. Well, there's other explanations. Some say older TV effects. Others say it's just sort of like an urban myth, and people just kind of go with it. But whatever it is, let's say it is the case that they scrubbed the braces after the movie viewing. It still wouldn't prove a Mandela effect or that it's connected to Berenstain Bears or cornucopias in the underwear or any of these other things. So it's still one of these misremembrances that's fascinating. And if it is real, if it is an alteration, it's not a reality jump. And that's the main point here, is that there are explanations for all of these discrepancies.
Yeah. Well, that's why I don't bother talking about the Mandela stuff. But I always tell you what the host codes are, which is the man and son was the main one. It's right there in the codes. You know who started it? It's them. It's Nelson Mandela. So you know that it was them who created this BS psyop.
Yes, yes. In fact, it started with this witch named Fiona Fitzgerald Broom. And what she did was she was a ghost hunter with Ouija boards and talking to ghosts. And she claimed that CERN split reality and now people are seeing more ghosts. And so that's kind of where it actually got started. And she was the one who said it was Nelson Mandela. And then later, of course, it's just blown up. But I think it's sort of like chemtrails, where I think it's one of these things where it's a popular thing and it's easy to believe and hard to disprove. And so I'm taking the time to actually work on debunking the very premise of it. Not to say that they can't screw with our reality and change things 24/7, which they obviously do through the news media.
Yeah, and you know what I always say, why they brought Mandela into the picture with all this, because of Obama. They wanted Obama to look like he brought him back from the dead.
Yeah, that is an interesting subtext to it
You've heard,
here.
you've heard,
You brought it up how it's you got the son and then man, so you got the man-son code you mentioned, but that the story comes around the same time as Obama, so Obama is basically symbolically bringing him back from the dead when you merge it with this Mandela effect story.
right. So he brings back. So supposedly it was during Obama's presidency that this started. So he brings Nelson Mandela back from the dead, and then that Gabby Giffords gets shot, the congresswoman. She goes into a coma. Obama visits her room, and she wakes up from her coma. So Obama brought her back from the dead, and then now you're going to have Obama, because it's on his birthday, that Trump gets the head wound and he resurrects. Whether it's a couple of days later or whatever it is, he wakes up from his coma. So whatever the hell's going to happen to him. So what I'm saying is they're setting up some kind of scenario with this Obama. Who knows what they're going to say, but that's what I believe it's just predictive programming. It doesn't mean that Obama's going to have any part to play. It's just that what I'm saying is they're trying to give you a, like I say, predictive programming for what's about to come, and how it's connected to what I always talk about is when did Gabby Giffords get her head wound? You know the date? I mean, I know it, but do you know it?
Was it Elvis's birthday or was it?
Yeah.
That was the date.
Yeah. It was
1/8.
Elvis's birthday. Yeah, 1/8 on 2011. So, and on that same day of that head wound, you had the beast quake in Seattle.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, I didn't know that there was a concurrent quake in Seattle on that date of the Giffords thing. Let me run this by you. Did you see the story about Elvis Presley's Graceland?
Grace. Yeah.
Appar-
Yeah.
Like
What do
apparently,
you got to say about it? Go ahead.
okay, well, because you'd pointed out it looks like the White House. Well, all of a sudden, it's been in the news for the
Right.
last few days because they were trying to force the sale of Graceland, and it was going on auction for It was going on auction, but they halted it just now. So Graceland has been in the news on blast for the last few days. Plan to auction Graceland's the Graceland place was just stopped today, but anyway, the Tennessee AG stopped it.
Yeah, and the whole reason for that was just first of all, there's no way in the world somebody's going to bring a lawsuit like that and make it seem like it's legit, that anyone would take it seriously, and then not even show up to court to fight the lawsuit. So it's because I think the people didn't show up, the other party, to court or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is staged,
That's
It's
kind of what I'm
total
leaning to.
nonsense.
It's almost like this is just a staged event to get this image, to perhaps put this out there. Not quite sure 100%, but we've been talking about this lately, and it's relevant to this particular Trump character. And you mentioned it looks like the White House, and so I'm finally getting a look at it. But as far as where this is going, not 100% sure, other than just the symbolism. And one more point here is mostly in 2022, where the symbol of the house was made very prevalent. Like the Westworld movie had this chapel, which looked just like the chapel where Alec Baldwin shot the guy with Trump's birthday. Looks just like the chapel from Ye's ceremony at Dawn Day, where he burned his house. So the burning house symbol has been like this repeated theme, and it's been applied to the White House. And so I think the Graceland house may have some significance with regard to that.
Well, also that little house that you're talking about, because I mentioned that in the Kanye West and the other shooting thing you were talking about. I mentioned both those things a long time ago because if you look at Elvis's, where he was born, his house, and there's a little chapel there too. It looks just like that house that you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, there's something symbolic about that structure. Yes.
Yeah, and also in the iPet Goat, right? They show that house burning. It looks just like that also. On the chalkboard, you remember that?
Yep. So there's something with the house.
90 seconds.
Oh, okay. Hey, it looks like we are getting close to the end of my Blog Talk Radio allotted daily time.
Okay, no problem. I just came. Yeah, no problem. I'll just call another time. I was just calling because I thought you had no calls, but it ended up you had four callers waiting or something.
Yeah, I think I have one more caller. I'm going to get them really quick on here. But yeah, hey, call back anytime,
Yeah,
and we'll be in touch.
I'll talk to you. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Take care.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me bring on the next
60
caller.
seconds.
Hey, what's up, caller? We just got a minute left, so if you want to go ahead and let us know what's on your mind.
Is that me?
Yes. Yes, this is you.
I guess my only point is I agree with him. It was in the movie version, Dolly having the metal teeth. They didn't show it till the end of the movie. like at the closing scene, they smile at each other, and all of a sudden she has the metal teeth. They hold hands and walk off. That's like at the end of the movie. But when they released the tape, it wasn't on there anymore.
Okay, okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I'm gonna have to watch Moonraker in its entirety in order to decide what I think about it.
I think it was like one of the
10
early
seconds.
psyops, just to keep people off the base. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, hey, appreciate the call and call back anytime. We're just about out of time here, so thanks again. And everyone in chat, want to say thanks.
Awesome, Tim. You have a good one.
Yep, you too. Everyone here in chat, same thing. I appreciate you leaving your comments, adding to our collective body of intel. We do some of the best human intel on the web. We can take credit for having doxed Q, which is not a small thing. Elephant Tusk says, it's like Tim taking calls from a prison and time is running out. Yes. I didn't set it up for 2 hours. I mistakenly put 90 minutes. Smarty Pants says, why is Blog Talk so expensive? It's worth it. Blog Talk Radio is worth it, and it's enabled by Patreon members. So the more of you who join, the more of you who become members here, the more I can do. And what Blog Talk Radio does, it allows me to set up a caller queue where callers are able to listen while they're on hold. Therefore, we can get back-to-back 3, 4, 5 callers, and it's just going to get better. I'm just now getting used to the whole process. Joined by Pippi Langstruff, thank you for joining. Stranger Days says, Moonraker gaslight psyop. I do believe that the Mandela effect is a product of gaslighting, but I believe that the gaslighting is being done by the Mandela effect proponent, who says, do you still believe this, or do you remember this? That initial casting doubt on what you recall is an act of gaslighting. And once they have you questioning, was it this or that, then your imagination supplies the that. So you say, the logo used to have a swirly, now it doesn't. So now your imagination supplies the swirly logo. So now you have two concepts in your mind, and they're being weighed the same, and they're stored in the same filing cabinet. So in other words, the Mandela effect is a way of prompting false memories and gaslighting the target about the memory they authentically have. Just bringing it up that Mandela effect is the gaslighting effect, combined with many other factors. A lot of it's about sense of community, belonging, etc. One more point about it, it's not spiritual. Like, I understand that people are looking for meaning, and even if it's not the truth, ultimately it's some insight into how reality is fake. No, actually it's not. It's your mind being messed with, and you're misunderstanding it. And believing in something that is a misperception is the opposite of enlightenment. It's really something that we need to fully expose, because it offers a way to understand how memory actually works, and also how powerful the media has become through its framing of narratives and its selectivity. And part of what makes the Mandela effect work is the selectivity of it all. It's not like this is an object that has changed, or this movie has changed, here's 5 different versions. No, it's always a binary. And it's a binary so they can control it. Well, our mainstream media is always set up like a binary. It's mainstream or it's alternative. Choose one of these. Well, what if there's a third option, like maybe it's neither? Well, they don't even allow that in, so they can steer you. Smarty Pants says, Tim, have you ever used Google Voice? Yeah, I'm actually on Google Voice, but it doesn't have hold. So actually, I was on Google Voice calling to Blog Talk Radio. But I do use Google Voice for voicemails. Angst G says, Stavely claims it's a spiritual phenomenon. Yeah, he does. And that's fine, but it's wrong in the sense that, spiritual means you're obtaining some information, or you're having some insight about the ultimate nature of reality, but it doesn't count if it's based on a misunderstanding, mislabeling something a miracle when it's not a miracle. And what it does over time, I think, is it builds up this echo chamber to where one is so attached to this alternate view, their ego, their community, that they can't leave it. A great example of this is the documentary I often reference, Mirage Men, about special agents with the Air Force tricking a conspiracy theorist into thinking he's being contacted by aliens. Why do they do this? So they could spread disinformation around any kind of sightings conspiracy theorists have about classified aircraft by the Air Force Base that this individual was at. So this person's writing about special craft that he's seen. The Air Force messes with his mind, and he starts promoting beliefs in aliens and alien abductions, and then conferences start happening. And he meets other people who say, I too have heard about alien abductions, and aliens from Venus have also contacted me. And over time, this alien mythology created by the Air Force became adopted by people who now treat it as real. Years later, this individual is told by one of the special agents, hey, we were messing with your mind this entire time. And he was not able to accept that. He had to say, no, 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 now you're messing with my mind because I know too much and you're trying to get me to not believe it anymore. I'm not going to fall for that. So he managed to lock himself in to a false paradigm rather than admit that he had not only been a dupe, but that he had helped a lot of people dupe themselves. Matt X says, it's really worth paying for Blog Talk for Q unlimited time. There's nothing wrong with Skype. Skype was pretty bad. I was actually missing a lot of calls. The ringer is obnoxious and loud. A lot of the times the calls just wouldn't come through. And the caller queue is worth it when you have multiple callers, which we will have here soon. You can't scale up with Skype. But not only that, but again, the other aspect of it is there's no ringer, and I can also do Blog Talk Radio when I'm on the road. I don't have to be here in front of the computer. We can do basically by phone. I can do live talk radio. That's what it's originally for. It was always a call-in situation. But if I don't get any value out of it after a month or two, I might just go back to Skype. But I really think it's going to do well, and I do expect this channel to grow. Our numbers are actually getting pretty good. Let's just take a quick look here. We have 40 listening on Twitter at IPS Think Tank. We have 20 at one YouTube channel, 78 at another. So there's about 100 on YouTube, 40 on Twitter. Then we're also on Twitch, Odyssey, Paranormal Radio, TuneIn, and Radio King, radio.net. So I think we're at about 200 listeners. The time's limited to 2 hours at a time. I could certainly add on to that if I needed to. Upside Down Guy says, is it butt naked or buck naked? Dr. Egg Mandela. Yeah, let me circle back to that really quick. This is really good. This is the reason why I like having open phones. This alone was worth the cost of Blog Talk Radio. Egg corns. An egg corn is an alteration of a phrase through mishearing or reinterpretation of one or more of its elements, creating a new phrase with different meaning than the original, but which still makes sense and is plausible in the same context. So egg corn is derived from acorn. These arise from people attempting to make sense of a stock phrase that uses a term unfamiliar to them. Sort of like replacing Alzheimer's disease with old-timers disease. Or William Shakespeare's to the manor born or to the manor born. Very interesting here. This could explain a lot because we're talking about misinterpretations, misspellings, any type of error that is somehow appropriated and adopted, but it doesn't actually get corrected at any point. And I see this a lot. I mean, here where I live in Albuquerque, we have, you have Sonic, the drive up. Here it's called Sonics with an S. Everybody here calls it Sonics. And then they have this drink there, 44 ounces. They call it Route 44. But through Albuquerque, you have Route 66. And so everyone thinks it's a 66-ounce drink they're getting. They order a Route 66. There's no 66-ounce cup. But it's just become so common here that nobody corrects it. All right, let's continue here. Upside Down Guy says, I'm asking you before you look it up, is it butt naked or buck naked? I think it's buck, like a deer. I'm going to go with buck. All right, let's see here. A lot of people are coming up with similar ones. But all of these make a lot more sense than jump into the conclusion that reality has shifted and that all of these misapprehensions are part of this same phenomenon, which they're not. I mean, I think you could make a better case that the Bible Mandela effects are completely separate from the logos and the candy wrappers. You could just call it the God effect. But no, it's got to be the Mandela effect. And another thing too, I remember when I was first introduced to the Mandela effect, somebody brought up, hey, you remember in the Bible about the lion and the lamb? I'm like, yeah. Well, when I say yeah, what do I mean? Bible, lion, lamb, like two of the most common symbols in the Bible. Of course, everybody remembers lion and lamb. But did I really know the specific Bible verse about the wolf and the lamb? Did I know that verse enough to say it changed? No. So they get you to agree with their pitch, and then they say, no, it's this. You remember this? It's this now. They get you to say yes, and then they change, and they say, no, your expectations are being upset. Yeah, I do remember this, but it's actually this. It's a trick. It's a meme. All right, Upside Down Guy says it's B-U-T-T. Interesting. Okay, someone said that Stavely had a conversation with JLB. This should be interesting. Matt X says, JLB had a convo with Stavely. I haven't listened. I'd be very interested in hearing this thing. I would also like to have a conversation with, both of them would be great. Because John LeBon is a big proponent of synchromysticism. And I think that there needs to be a conversation about synchromysticism itself and whether its fundamental premise is solved. It's easy to dismiss the idea that everything is scripted, but I have evidence that things are scripted. Every PSYOP is a scripted event inserted into the historical narrative that becomes part of our history. So our history is written in advance, especially when it comes to the big world-changing, transformative PSYOPs. So it is not a stretch to say everything is scripted, that these mainstream media hoax events are planned in advance, so that's not a stretch. To say that it's a higher power or a supercomputer and not man, that is the tall claim now, and I think it's worth having a debate about. Elephant Tusk says he referenced Donnie Darko and the tangential universe theory explored in it, but somehow discount potential reality residue. Yeah, I absolutely discount it. There's no evidence. There's no evidence for retroactive changes in any of these things. Not a single one. So yeah, I discount anything without evidence. Just as a rule, I'm a non-believer. Absolutely. Upside Down Guy, thank you again. We have 5 more members to the Blue Wrench Lodge. Ophikus says, Isaiah 11:6, the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, the leopard shall lie with the kid, the calf, the young lion, fatling together, and the child shall lead them. So they're all in there in a mix. And every Sunday school class, they have coloring books and artwork. You're always seeing all these images. But when somebody says, do you remember the Bible had the lion and the lamb, now it's the wolf and the lamb, it changed? Most people will nod their head and agree without knowing that it's Isaiah 11:6, King James Version. So you have no business saying, I remember, if you can't recite the verse first. That's just one. But there are no valid Mandela effects. There's not a one. There's one that I accept. I've debunked the Mandela effect. But Tim Pool, I'm pretty sure, used to have an E at the end. So I do have a bit of a thing here. I'm calling it the Tim Pool effect. But I'm looking forward to listening to this conversation between JLB and BS. High Impact Flick says, can anyone testify they have actual first-hand knowledge of the shape of the Earth? If you can, please provide proof below. Let's see if anybody's provided anything. Globe Earth is the greatest lie. Here's one. I flew from Sacramento to Belgium and I saw the curve. That's funny. Like, how does that even work? Like, just because you flew a longer distance, you saw a curve. And where did you see it? How high were you? You know, is the curve in the room with you right now? Smarty Pants says, how do we join the Wrench Lodge? You go to Infinite Plane Society. That is the channel. And then just click the membership button. It's like $1 a month. It goes a long way to support this think tank, which is really something of an achievement that we've kept this going this long, despite the best efforts of the, I guess, the containment operations to prevent these mind viruses from accessing or contaminating their platforms. We're going through a holy war, sort of the online version of a quarantine. Upside Down Guy says, hi, Flix is a closet flurf. He'll say it's flat when it's safe. He's got to do a poll. A lot of these people are just there to pander to their audiences. And most of their audiences believe in the truth or orthodoxies. Like, he's still a big chemtrail pusher. Like, look, if you believe in chemtrails, you have to at least be honest with yourself. And you have to say, I don't know what those are, but I believe they're bad and poisonous. But I don't believe strongly enough to wear a mask or engage in activism or lock down. But I believe it's bad. It's like, okay. And again, the first person who told me about chemtrails was smoking cigarettes, Camel Wides, while he told me about these trails up there I should be concerned about. And I'm like, I'm a little more worried about your secondhand smoke. G says, High Impact Flicks debated Owen Benjamin and it was a disaster. Yes, they debated about anarchism. And it was pretty bad. It was a disaster, I would say. High Impact Flicks and Owen Benjamin had a bit of a falling out, and I believe High Impact Flicks' wife was dragged into it, and his family, his daughter. It got really personal. But anyway, High Impact Flicks is also someone who pushes the idea of black helicopters in Vegas. I mean, these aren't truthers. These alt media types, whether they're insulated, controlled opposition agents, or just pandering to what's there, they're not truthers. They're alt media. There's a world of difference. But look, I've been following this Reddit thread on Owen Benjamin, and nobody has such a cult of dedicated haters of such a size as his. Like, I've had haters, I've had stalkers, but there's like 5,000 people in this group, and all they do is they watch his live streams and they hate on it. And I'm like, they're probably his best promoters. It reminds me of Media Matters, how they would always be hating on Rush Limbaugh. So Rush Limbaugh would get promoted usually through his opposition. I have to wonder if that's not maybe something that he runs himself. Like, maybe I need a Reddit thread that just takes apart everything that I say. But there's a point where these anti-fans are basically just fans. What's the difference? Commenter says, nicotine doesn't remain in the body like nanotech chaff from chemtrails, Tim. Okay, well, if you believe in nanotech chaff from chemtrails, why don't you wear a mask? Why don't you put a mask on your children or your pets? Why don't you put air filters on? Why are you even walking around outside without an umbrella? If you believe in nanotech chaff from chemtrails, like, I mean, maybe you're just stoic about it. Maybe you're just not easy to trigger. Like, if my neighbor's dog was using my front yard, my neighbor and I would have words. And that's safe. I mean, it's biodegradable. Maybe it's rude, but like, it's not going to kill me. But I don't want my neighbors leaving their waste on my yard. And that's rather trivial, and I'm going to go make it stop. But you're saying you believe the airlines are literally spraying poison in your face every single day, covering the land, dumping it on playgrounds where children are playing, messing up the skies, blotting out the sun, and you're not going to go complain. So just the passivity of the chemtrail proponent makes me think that they don't really believe it. They're just pretending. It's just a LARP. It's either a LARP or chemtrails make you docile. Upside Down Guy says, Owen Benjamin is outrageously narcissistic. Does that word even mean anything anymore? I don't think it means anything. Society is by default, principally it's a culture of narcissism. Social media has made it such, and it's like it's so surface, it's so shallow. But I don't know. I tend to go against the grain when it comes to like these haters. Like, look, you don't see this type of opposition to people who are totally controlled. So it just makes them seem a little more legit. But I don't know. Upside Down Guy says microplastics are airborne, so if chemtrail or microplastic believers exist, face masks must be worn. Daniel Moore says it's in the face mask. Well, when are we going to have some class action lawsuit for chemtrail lung? Like, I've got chemtrail lung. You know, I've spent years chasing chemtrails, warning people. I never wore a mask. I was just being so selfless, and it's taken a toll on me. Like, where's the chemtrail lung lawsuits, the class action? It's been 30 years. All right, let's move on. Maybe Tim will file a lawsuit post Goldfinch. Look, if somebody can convince me in a debate that chemtrails are real, I will lead a class action lawsuit against the airlines. 100%. I'll make it happen. So all you need to do is convince me. Like, convince me of anything. Convince me of any one of these conspiracy theories I don't believe in, and I will become its champion. Whatever it happens to be. Just to make a point, because it just seems like it's easy to say you believe in something, but it's much harder to take action on what you supposedly believe. Daniel Moore says, just go outside. You know, someone already said that to me, and you know what? I went out today and I touched grass. I went out hiking. Hot day. I saw a lot of planes. There were no trails. None. Why? Did they say no chemtrails? Don't spray them on May 23rd. That's not on our date. We don't have the budget for it. No chemtrails. Why didn't I get any sprays today? I'll tell you why. The weather report gave it away as well. The temperature, the humidity. It wasn't conducive to persistent trails. That's why. Again, trails, contrails are predictable. Your chemtrail schedule is not. So you lose. You literally lose. You lost the debate. There are no chemtrails. It's a figment of your imagination. It's a misinterpretation. It's a misunderstanding. It's an argument made from inexcusable ignorance. If you don't know what the Appleman chart is, then you have no business proposing chemtrails. Like, we can just let that rest. There's no chemtrails. Lean Dion says, clear skies constantly in Western Australia. Nope, couldn't be the climate there. It's got to be the chemtrail schedule. Or maybe you just don't go outside because you're a basement dweller. Like me. And you don't touch grass. Daniel Moore says it's not every day it changes the weather. I can explain that one. That one's called faulty causality. It's a clear day. Planes fly. Now there's trails. Now it rains. Trails caused rain. A happened before B, therefore B was caused by A. Nope. The trails only formed because it was already going to rain that day. It was already conducive to persistent trails. The conditions pre-existed the trails. The trails are a byproduct of the conditions. These conditions also cause it to rain. So if you see trails and rain, yeah, they're correlated, but that's false causality to assume the trails cause the rain. Similarly, when Crow 77777 boils vinegar in his front yard and does his little chemtrail dance, and he says it turns the sky blue, no, it didn't. Time did. The sky was going to clear anyway, whether or not you were out there twerking around a boiling pot of vinegar. Like, it doesn't make anything. It's faulty causality. You're making an error, which is slightly understandable, but there's so much information out there that you are remiss if you're not arguing against that information before you try to replace it. Okay, commenter says, this is, do you have a background in meteorology? I do, and you're ignorant. If you don't know what the Appleman chart is, or why predictability rules out your chemtrail theory, then you're actually making an argument from ignorance, and the whole chemtrail pitch is an appeal to ignorance. Because if somebody already knows the truth about hot jet exhaust in rarefied air at 25,000 feet, they're not going to believe it. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Upside Down Guy says, how do we know you didn't wave a pickle before your grass touching video? Yeah, that's true. And you don't have to just boil vinegar. According to Ron Paul's supporters around 2012, a lot of them used to take spray bottles of vinegar and spray the sky. And they would say, we are clearing away chemtrails. You know, I knew a Wiccan who claimed, and this is from a book, that she could point at clouds and make them go away, that she could clear the skies with her gaze. And sure enough, if you point at a cloud long enough, it will go away. Or you could point at the sun at 4 p.m. and say, look, I'm going to make it set. I'm just going to point at the sun until it sets. Yeah, it's going to set. But you're misinterpreting things. You're misapplying this thing as a cause and then blaming it for what happens when, no, these things are not correlated. Ron Paul supporters spray vinegar at the sky to kill chemtrails. Vinegar dissipates chemtrails. Who knew? Daniel says, I don't think you've touched enough grass. You still sound like you have basement depression. Well, let me ask you a question. Why don't you have any footage or videos of these trails that cause the rain? Like, somebody should provide that. Vinegar wielding conspiracy theorist chemtrail lady is a forgotten masterpiece of net art. Yep, that's a good description of it. But for the backstory, the tinfoil hat wearing crowd, to avoid being blasted by what they believe are chemtrails, are spraying vinegar from squirt bottles. The solution to chemtrails: a fine mist of vinegar spritzed into the atmosphere, reaching 25,000 feet. Just like that. And this woman isn't the only vinegar-wielding conspiracy chemtrail warrior. There's a group of them on Facebook, and they tend to overlap with flat earthers. Yeah, this is true. Sadly, it's true. Ron supporters spraying vinegar at the sky. So this isn't new at all. A lot of these videos aren't up there anymore, but you can find them. So you're in that camp. If you're a chemtrail believer, you're hanging out with Ron Paul supporters spraying vinegar. Inuful says, stop the chemtrail stuff, it's distraction. Yeah, it's a distraction. Look, I've already debunked it. Eddie F says it's not popular anymore. Are you kidding me? It is the most popular mainstream conspiracy theory out there. It is as popular as climate change. And it needs to be, well, it has been debunked, but one of the reasons why I am adamant about deconstructing and debunking it is that it brings into acceptance a certain number of informal and formal logical fallacies that I just think we don't have time for anymore. That we need to just stop accepting loaded questions. Stop moving the goalposts. Stop being dishonest in order to prop up something. Chemtrails are one of the most popular conspiracy theories. This is from last month. So anybody who says it's not a thing anymore, not only is it a huge thing, but it is wildly disproportionately popular. It is spread on X and it's growing. Not only that, but it's mutating in a lot of different ways. So no, it's not going anywhere. It's 100% a psyop. Well, commenter says you've debunked nothing. Actually, you've bunked nothing. This is the fact of it is, since chemtrails have never been proven to exist, your theory has not been bunked. So you can't tell me to debunk that which hasn't been bunked. Unicorns don't exist. Do I have to debunk unicorns? No. You have to prove to me that unicorns exist first, and then I can try to debunk them. You have not debunked contrails. So until you can debunk contrails, all you're doing is you're fantasizing. He says, chemtrails are covert chemical warfare nanotech dispersal. Yeah, that's like saying climate change is real and that cow flatulence is responsible for drowning polar bears. It's like, okay, chemtrail Greta, believe what you want. You don't really believe it because you don't wear a mask. When you put on a mask, I'll take you seriously. But until you put on a mask, you're just LARPing for attention, clicks, or loosh. You know, think about that too. The mass media uses psyops to tap into your loosh. Well, maybe it's more like there's some kind of energetic exchange or high people get from tapping into each other's loosh. Maybe it's not just the mass media, but truthers are doing it too. Think about it. How many anti-Vs are out there spreading fear, paranoia, which can only lead to nocebo and placebo effects? How is that any different than what the mainstream is doing with its, in a way, it's almost like adrenochrome extraction, feeding off fear. And if you're spreading fear like that, you're on team MSM. Eddie F says, if people care about what they're breathing, why don't they care about what they eat? Yeah, right. The guy who's talking about chemtrails is probably eating a Big Mac, smoking Camels. All right, let's move on. We'll be back. Daniel Moore says, have you died from fluoride yet? No, I think chemtrail lung's going to take me out. And when it does, then I'll be sorry, but it'll be too late. And a lot of people say, look, he didn't listen to us. He didn't believe in chemtrails. All right, this is Fepe Akbar, Allergic to Bullshit, featuring Lean Dion. Thanks for the calls, comments. We'll be back tomorrow with a full 2 hours of open phones next time. I want to say thanks again to Upside Down Guy and others for supporting the think tank. And hopefully we'll have some updates here in a couple of days about the process server going after MG.
With your deception, keep it real, that's a profession. Like the whole world is pretending. Found the truth around the penguin. Get a gang on with a blessing. All the other gang is stressing. RPSC on a nesting. Only real one's gonna get this. Fake ones don't accept this. They can miss the message. Timbuktu got bodies, yeah. Find them in our records. Auto host a message. Squad are representing. Killing you with knowledge, yeah. The uppers getting deadly. Oh, you're so affected. Cause we're so effective. Let go of your worries, yeah, the whole thing is a setup. We got it and we get it. Offering refreshment. Level up your conscience, yeah, it's honestly the essence. This wave is uncontainable. Facts are undebatable. You lanes are unrelatable. Give a fuck about saving you. We could keep on playing you. You just keep complaining too. Game is unescapable unless you're with the gang or no.
Messing with the penguin. Messing with the penguin, Fepe Akbar. 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 Fucking with the penguins, yeah, with the penguins. I'm coming with a vengeance, trying to make you come to your senses. Forget the general consensus, just pay attention. The walk to hell is paid with good intentions. I'm clenching, my back wrenching, representing only the most superior, independent media. We got that real shit fucking encyclopedia. We're bringing an end to this mass hysteria. They wanna know why it's so serious, cause you must be delirious. If you're still believing stuff, get a grip and show some evidence for your bold claims. We don't play no games. We stay relentless, exposing hoax events. Quick DIPS are making an entrance. Busting doors down, cause now's the time for interventions that I mentioned. We're affecting so many men across the spectrum. We stand out from the crowd, we don't blend in. Steady gaining tremendous momentum. There's nothing close to resembling. Check the emblem, it's a penguin, not a gremlin. Just letting you know you're on an infinite plane, it's never bending. We strike like Tenpin, killing all fears and breaking the tension. Got another Hawks army, digging deep in the trenches. Come and join in, be adventurous. Quit being so sensitive, forget the censorship. We ain't telling fibs. Messing with the penguin. We're messing with the penguin. You're messing with the penguin. You're messing with the penguin. Messing with the penguin. You're messing with the penguin. Messing with the penguin. Quit fucking with the penguins. Yeah.
One of the things that I like to analyze with all these events is, yeah, you can analyze what you don't see, with the actual victims. You don't see any evidence of real mass casualty, the victims, the crisis actors. You never see tears.